Hey guys, what's going on? So, here's my process book. Um, I chose to start my calculator app demo with my user persona. Um, this guy's name is Chipper Chase, and one thing that he's trying to do is he's trying to figure out the monthly cost of running his TV on average 4 hours a day. All right, so the situation is that Chase just got his electricity bill in the mail. It was super expensive, triple the amount that he expected it to be. And after thinking what it could be that was so different this month versus all the prior months, he remembered that he bought a brand new TV and he's been watching a lot of TV, and he thought, you know what, maybe it's the TV that's costing me so much money. So he decided to download the electricity calc app and run some numbers and see if his suspicion is true. So what he did was he downloaded the electricity calc app, and here I'm using an iPhone 10 for the device, and all the components I've used in my app are iOS components. I'll just kind of talk about those as I run across them. So first step here, let's just launch the app. We come to the launch image, and then after a second or two, once the app loads, it goes into the landing page. Now on this landing page, you'll notice there's not a lot to it. It just kind of welcomes the user to the app and gives them really just one option. So how much does it cost to use it? Well, this is an electricity calculator, so let's find out. So once the user gets into this view, at the very top, the heaviest part of the page is this nice big hero section. Monthly cost, obviously we haven't put any data in here yet, so the monthly cost right now is just 0. So if we let our eyes drift down to the lower part of the view here, you'll notice 3 input fields. And the first input field is a little bit different than the other two. If you notice these two, the helper text is much lighter. There's no border around the input field. But here there is a border, and the helper text is darker. So this is just providing a few affordances to let the user know, hey, this is the first thing that I want you to do. Now, the convention on the desktop would be if you see an input field, you click into it and you can type things from your keyboard. With iOS, though, Apple gives us a lot of really cool ways to input data using gestures and these cool little UI components, which I'll show you here in a second. So what I wanted to do with these input fields is try and avoid the user having to manually type in any data using their thumbs on that tiny little keyboard. So the first thing I did here is I put the controls in what's called a bottom sheet. So I'll do that interaction for you one more time. So watch, I'll tap this, and from the bottom you'll see another layer of controls kind of slide in from the bottom. So I'll tap this, and this bottom layer slid in, and from the top down I'll just kind of talk about what is going on here. At the very top you'll see this little arrow. I call this a handlebar. You can kind of tap and drag this down, and it will dismiss the view. So I'll show you that. Tap, and the view goes away. You trigger this to get it back up. So anyway, this is a convention that iOS is starting to use in several of their apps. The one that comes to mind is the Music app. So if you subscribe to Apple Music, you can tap on an album while a song is playing, and it'll kind of go full width here, just like this, where the view doesn't quite go up to the top of the phone. It just kind of leaves enough peeking out there to let you know that this layer that you're looking at is sitting on top of the base layer underneath, and you can just use a nice little gesture to swipe down to get rid of this layer. So I used this bottom sheet as a way to help the users input data into this calculator. So at the top here, it asks, how much do you pay for energy? Maybe I should back up. If you notice here, there's 3 input fields, and what I'm asking for is energy price, power consumption, and usage time. And these 3 data points, we can do some calculations and provide a monthly cost of using a particular electronic device, whether it be a TV or a dryer or refrigerator or a toaster or whatever it is. So the user can tap into energy price, and how much do you pay for energy? Well, if they're not quite sure what that is asking, down here some helper text just talks about how energy, at least in the United States, is measured by kilowatt hour. And you can usually find that rate on your electrical statement. But instead of keying in or manually typing in numbers, what we can do is provide the user this slider here, and they can just tap and hold and drag over, and the farther right they go, the more cents are added to this energy cost. And so then if you let your eye go down towards the bottom of the view, notice we have a next call to action and then some pagination dots down here. And so it looks like we're on page 1 of 3. So if I tap next, you would kind of expect to be on page 2. So tapping next takes you to page 2. So we're still in this bottom sheet thing. It's just a multiple step bottom sheet. And so at the top, the heading changed now to talking about how much power the device uses. So here we have a picker, so the user, instead of typing in numbers manually, they can just kind of scroll the picker up. I scrolled it up to 30 watts per hour. And so now we can tap next to go to the last step. And the heading changed now to how much do you use the device monthly. So I'm going to adjust this to 4 hours. And now we're on the last step. So the next call to action is all done. So tapping here will dismiss the bottom sheet and show us the actual monthly cost. And notice now the input fields all have data in them. The user never had to type in data manually. You could just use the gestures and the controls that iOS provides as a fun and kind of friction-free way to enter data. And so there's the calculation. There's no frivolous buttons that say calculate, and there's no confusing things that the user has to figure out. Everything is spelled out, and all affordances have been put in place to help the user progress through the app. So in the top right corner, there's a little refresh icon. So if we tap that, it'll clear out everything that we've done, and we can start over. So one of the things I wanted to point out is that this input field has a border around it. We kind of talked about that already. So if I tap this and enter some data and hit next, now if I decide to close this bottom sheet at this point, I'm on step 2. Step 1's already completed. So if I close this now, you'll notice we're on step 2. So the input field, the second input field is the one that's active, and this has the data that we just got done entering in. So yeah, the user can dip in and out here of this bottom sheet, enter in information. If they decide to close it, that's fine. They can get back into where they left off. So if we hit next here and close it without completing everything, these 2 input fields are filled while this one is still empty, so we can tap in here, enter those, and then hit all done. So yeah, so that's my app. Hope you enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun. Thank you for all the feedback. I really appreciate that. It helps definitely flesh out ideas. And I know my kind of prototype was a little rough there right up until the last minute, literally like 3 minutes ago. I updated a lot of pieces of feedback that you guys had been providing over the last few days. So I definitely appreciate all the help there. So yeah, that's my energy calc.